All right, I haven't done one of these in a while. I'm gonna try to do Steely Dan's discography in my eyes, which is basically the first seven records from 1972 to 1980. All came out, I believe, on ABC Records. Yeah, so let's check it out. So here's the first one. This is Can't Buy a Thrill. This was put out in 1972. Gary Katz is the producer. He produced all their records, actually, at least the seven that I'm going to talk about real quick. This is when they were actually kind of a band. It's Walter Becker and Donald Fagen, also along with Jeff Skunk Baxter, Danny Diaz, and was it Jim Hodder playing the drums. The only additional players, and David Palmer. He was actually the vocalist on a couple songs, which is weird because the songs that David Palmer sang on, which was like Dirty Work, which was one of their AM radio hits, and also he sang on Brooklyn. What is it? Brooklyn what? Brooklyn Owes the Charmer Under Me. Those songs almost sound like Flying Burrito Brothers, like post Graham Parsons, Flying Burrito Brothers. It's strange, but the rest of it sounds like the rest of Steely Dan. You know, like it has that kind of like smooth jazz, like really really good production. But the Elliot Randall is one of the other additional musicians. He's the one that did the solo on Reelin' in the Years, and even that song too, Reelin' in the Years, is just like it. It's kind of weird that it's on this record, but where else would it be? Meaning that it doesn't sound like anything else. So this was their first attempt at putting a record out where I guess they were in the Brill Building writing songs, and Gary Katz was the one that was trying to get them, to write songs for other people, and nobody really got it. So then they just decided to put their own band together, came up with Can't Buy a Thrill, which is a pretty fucking good record. There's a song on here too. What is it? No, it's not Change of the Guard. I think it's only a fool would say that. I'm not sure. Maybe Turn That Heartbeat Over Again. I don't know. But I've been listening to a lot of Steely Dan lately, like more than usual. And so far I found these weird like chord progressions that exist only one time in a song. I'm looking for the rest of them. I found one on this, and I found one on the Royal Scam, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But it's just, I don't know. I think it's them just being like super, super clever and keeping themselves entertained, which is kind of their whole approach throughout their entire career. But let me move on to the next record. This one is Countdown to Ecstasy. This one gets, I wouldn't say overlooked a lot, but kind of doesn't get the appreciation that I think it deserves. This album actually, let me see. The Boston Rag is that's the song on here. I just love that song to death. It's got such a good, I don't even know how to describe what it is that they did. It wasn't that it was like R&B or funk, or they just had their own kind of genre, which was Steely Dan. It's really strange how they were able to come up with that in a pop context. Apparently, they both, meaning Walter Becker and Donald Fagen, were like jazz fans, and I don't think it was so much that they didn't have the chops or the technique to play jazz. It was just, this is what came out in their playing. Because then this album also has a song called Pearl of the Quarter, which is, it's almost like a Brinsley Schwarz song, or some of that later, like, what's his name? Is it Billy Roberts, or the vocalist for the Flying Burrito Brothers? I can't remember. They put out one record like in 1971 or two, post Graham Parsons, and it reminds me of this. Like it's crazy. Some of the songs. Another song, My Old School, on here. That is like just a really really great pop tune, which I don't know. I think this album is a great sophomore output, maybe because it didn't generate a hit, because the first album that put out, they had a hit with Do It Again and with Reelin' in the Years, but whatever, they kept going. This album, Pretzel Logic, this one came out, I believe, in 74. I can't really see it on here. The hell does it say? I don't know. But this album is when the group started to, I wouldn't say splinter, but it kind of changed a little bit. So you got Jim Hodder is no longer playing drums on this. It's a guy called Jim Gordon who is playing drums on all but one song. And the song that he doesn't play on, which is probably my favorite on this album, is a song called Night by Night, which is like, it's almost like every record they're putting out, they start to like, they're like opening up the box. It's almost like, it's as if Walter Becker and Donald Fagen had it all planned out, and it was almost like they had iPods, right? Or the Apple iPhones, and we're like, we have the next iPhone that's going to exist for the next 10 years. We already know what they're going to be. We're just going to slowly give you hints about what the next one's going to be when it comes out. You're going to have to wait, though, a year for it. So that's my take on how they put out records, because the song on here, Night by Night, that's like, I wouldn't say that it could be on like Asia or the next album, Katie Lied, but it's just, it's leaning towards like getting a little funkier. It could have been possibly on the Royal Scam, I don't know. But the fact that it's on here in the context of this album where everything else is kind of like, you know, different, it works. And the drums on that are played by Jeff Porcaro, which is he becomes a little bit more prevalent, you know, on the next record. But kind of, yeah, like the rest of the album, like Ricky Don't Lose That Number, that was like their biggest hit. That's like the starts that kicks off this album. Monkey in Your Soul, I really like that song a lot. Parker's Band, Any Major Dude Will Tell You, like it's not so much like, oh, you can hear them progressing. Again, it's like, to me, it just sounded like they knew where it was going from the get-go, and it was just a matter of like time and release. Like, okay, we have all these tricks in this big box that is known as Steely Dan, and we're going to just kind of release them as we see fit. Now, with that being said, I think these first three albums, in a sense, is them, again, not finding themselves as a band musically, but they weren't as conceptual as I think the last albums seem to be. Now, this album is Katie Lied. It's a tie with me for my favorite output by them. It's the first time Michael McDonald makes an appearance on here, I believe, singing backup vocals. At this point, which even, Jeff Skunk Baxter is no longer with the group. Denny Diaz is no longer with the group. Denny Diaz at least comes back in one form or of fashion by playing guitar. I think Walter Becker is not playing bass anymore. It's Chuck Rainey playing bass. This album, every song but one is played by Jeff Porcaro on the drums, and the song that he does not play on is Any World That I'm Welcome To. That's Hal Blaine from the famous Wrecking Crew. That was like just some cat that played drums on almost every pop tune made at that time. But songs that stand out on this: Bad Sneakers, Daddy Don't Live in That New York City. My favorite song on this album, Everyone's Gone to the Movies. It's just got such a good, like, just feel. I couldn't even imagine. I mean, I can't imagine their stuff being played on the radio back then, and why it stuck out so much. It's just so different, you know. It doesn't sound like anything else that was around at the time. Then it gets to, which this one I think might be my favorite. It's either Katie Lied or this one, The Royal Scam. This album, I believe Bernard Purdie plays drums on almost all of it. And even just from the first song, Kid Charlemagne, it's got this drive, it's got this swing to it. It's awesome. And I hear a lot of, like, I don't know, I feel like Prince listened to a lot of different music in his coming up. This album I think came out in 1976, but there's some keyboard work in this break that comes twice. It's reprised again at the end after this amazing guitar solo by Larry Carlton, which everyone knows about. But the keys, like this line, it sounds like Prince to me. Like, it sounds like Prince heard that song and was like, okay, I'm a Steely Dan fan now, whatever, you know what I mean? But there's a song on here, the Haitian Divorce is the first song that I heard, and I just heard this little phantom chord progression that only appeared one time, and it's being played through. I think it's Donald Fagen. It's being played. It's a keyboard, but it's going through these sounds where it's almost like bells or something. Like it's really really soft, almost like a synthetic vibraphone. But it's playing this chord progression that is almost sounds like old R&B, and it's so like just it just hits you. And the thing that's crazy is it only happens one time, that chord progression, and it's playing throughout the whole song, but it just hits this one progression once and never comes back. And I can't put my finger on it. There's a lot of folklore, there's a lot of things that people decipher or scrutinize Steely Dan's methods, mythology. I'm not even gonna try to say that word. They just scrutinize their methods on their recording techniques and who they chose to play on what, and over analyze and scrutinize their lyrics, trying to figure out these codes, this, that, and the other, which I don't really want to talk about because it's been talked about to the death to a degree. Which everything that I could find about Steely Dan, they talk about the same shit. And I'm actually reading the Steely Dan fat book right now, which is great so far. But it's like I'm really interested in, am I finding something that is just another sub-secret where it's just these chord progressions that come about one time and it sounds like something else, but maybe that's why they're just paying like homage to some of their roots and just doing it once and just seeing like almost like a little secret joke between themselves. And I could even just see Donald Fagen and Walter Becker sitting at the control, sitting at the board while making these records and just looking at each other like yes, like this is awesome, and nobody's gonna fucking know what the hell we're doing. That's just my take on that, because why else, and why else are these things popping out to me? Maybe I'm listening to too much Steely Dan, I don't know, but can you listen to too much Steely Dan? Who the fuck knows? I don't know. This one, everyone knows for the most part, even if you don't like them. This is Asia. This is the one that came out in 1977. This was a lot of people's gateway into Steely Dan, and they kind of just stopped there at the same time. For that reason, because I saw it was so overly common, I was kind of reluctant to it, but I've been getting into it a lot lately, and it's great. There's only fucking 7 songs on it, or is it? Yeah, 7. This one's been sampled a lot. Black Cow and Peg, obviously. They're just amazing songs. Again, we got Bernard Purdy playing drums on this, and also, what's his name? Rick Marotta. But just really, really good swing. Production on here is amazing. Josie's a good cut. Asia, everyone knows the deal with that. And Deacon Blues, that's a hit song, and it's a fucking good song, man. It's got good lyrics and like just a good feel, nice pop album. And we get into the last one. This is Gaucho. This came out in 1980. Little too slick, if you ask me, which who does and who would. I remember listening to this on a quadraphonic system one time, and I have to say that I'm a little bit more intrigued with songwriting and performance than just technique as far as sound, but I definitely developed an appreciation for it later. Babylon Sisters is a great song. Hey 19 was the hit off of here, still played in your local dentist waiting room. Glamour Profession. The song Gaucho itself is pretty good. Time Out of Mind I really like. I think it's a pretty solid album, but it's not that it feels soulless. It's just, it kind of encapsulates where they were heading at the time, which they're just looking for studio perfection, and kind of let that shine a little bit more than the songwriting or the songs itself. Either way, of all these records, I mean, you can take, a song off of each one, your favorite, put it on a mixtape, and you got like a perfect Steely Dan album in my mind, or what's it called, opinion. But either way, you love them, you hate them. It's something that's going to be around forever and will be analyzed till the end of time, because they are indeed a big part of American music history, and I love them.